Has time run out for Mike Norvell at Florida State? Maybe not necessarily yet, but there are certainly some pros and cons to having this discussion, and these discussions are certainly being had at Florida State. Now, I'm not going to certainly tell you that anything is imminent, but I do think it's important for us to talk about it. So with Richie today, let's chat about Mike's future at Florida State in our video presented by BetUS. All right, let's talk about it, Richie. This is what everybody wants to know. This is what everybody, is questioning at this point. Do you fire Mike Norvell? Like, is it over? And we'll talk about the buyout, we'll talk about contract, we'll talk about revenue, we'll talk about all of those other things, but like, where are we at, Richie?
I'm done. I'm done with him entirely. This season is indefensible. I don't care what happened last year. Yeah, you got snubbed from the playoffs, and that was a travesty because he coached that team to get there. But to go from that to be 1-8, you're going to be 1-9 after Notre Dame. Spoiler alert for anyone who plans to listen on Wednesday. We're not playing that game either. It's just completely indefensible, and he let this happen. It's not like he's been bringing in top 5 recruiting classes year after year. He's been supplementing in the portal, and it worked out for a few years, and now we're to a point where clearly he whiffed on everyone. He thought, oh, let me get some fast receivers. But they can't catch. They can't run routes. They're terrible. And we're to a point now where what Mike Norvell has done to Florida State, where we're looking at most likely a 2-10 season. I would not be surprised if that Charleston Southern spread is like -7.5, where you could easily get upset. It's just indefensible that at Florida State University, you could put together this type of season. He hired all the assistants. He has recruited this entire roster. Every single player here is a Mike Norvell player. This is entirely on him. And if I'm in sales and I have a great year, I bring the company millions of dollars, but the next year I just completely tank and lose the company millions of dollars, I'm probably getting fired. And that's where we're at. And at his salary, again, the buyout is the elephant in the room, right? Like, can we afford it? But I guess the question is, and I saw you tweeted something similar to it, is the buyout that we would be paying out on an annual basis, would that be a net negative compared to if we got rid of him and brought someone else in? And the local businesses, the Garnet and Golds, the Madison Socials, the Gordos, like the losses they're feeling right now. We all saw the video of what the stadium looked like yesterday. It was embarrassing. That's a 50,000 capacity stadium right now, and that place was empty by the third quarter. And Mike Norvell did that. I love him as a person. I've met him multiple times. He's always been great to me, but he has lost the right to coach this team, in my opinion.
I appreciate BetUS for their support. Things haven't gone well for the Noles this year, but you can still bet a lot of money on college football. Ohio State was my lock of the week last week, and I also really liked Georgia and had to sweat that one out, but ended up cashing in pretty good there. You can go to BetUS right now and use code YouTube150. That's YouTube150 to get a 150% sign-up bonus up to $2,000. Your next 2 deposits are also covered under that $2,000 umbrella. Those are at 125% each. Use YouTube 150. Start playing today. Yeah, I don't even think, what's so telling is like when you look at rivals and stuff, not necessarily the site, but like look at your rival fans. I don't even think rival fans, and I know we got plenty in here, maybe they'll disagree with this. I don't even think this is really to the point of being like that enjoyable for rival fans anymore. Like it's just, I think it is like big picture. Yes, you would love to see your rivals go through this kind of thing.
When your rival fans care, and I don't think any of us care.
Yeah, like we're not even fighting back. It's just like, oh yeah, we're bad. Okay, great. They can't even, how much joy it brings you to knock off like a great Florida State team. Like go ask any Miami fan. Like, were you happier with wide right or the other 6 wide kicks or this? Did you like knocking off Bobby at his best? Or do you like this? Like, it's pathetic now. I spoke with Gabby Uridia of Inside the U, Canes 247 site last week, and I asked him, like, dude, was the game as boring? I mean, this is on air. Like, this isn't like a private conversation. I asked him this on air on our national channel. Hey, was the game even enjoyable for you? He's like, no, it was the most boring Florida State Miami game I've ever seen. Like, it wasn't even entertaining. It was boring. Florida State played prevent the whole game so that Cam couldn't get off, and they couldn't do anything offensively. It wasn't even fun to watch. And so, yeah, Miami fans are enjoying this. It's fun to maybe hear us rant, but they absolutely don't. nobody enjoys this. Like, this is, it's not even a fun product to watch. Like, they're not, like, we're tuning in to hate watch Miami every week and Duke takes a 10-point lead. We're watching that because we're like, oh, we need need to feel something in our lives.
Yeah.
They're not watching this. This is not fun to watch. So, okay, so you mentioned this. And so back to Charleston Southern. Just very quickly while we are on the subject. Charleston Southern's first game of the year, they also scored 21 points. They did lose that game. They scored 24 points the next week. They scored 23 a few weeks later. I don't know, man. I'm not saying that Florida State loses that game, but I'm certainly not counting it as a win. Now, ESPN still says we're favored by a lot, and Charleston Southern is 1-8 as well. But they're going to come in here thinking they can win. And, whether we can find a way to run, the path to a win in that game is run the ball 50 times and just hoping that works. But you mentioned this, and I'll talk about the contract a little bit, and then we can kind of wrap back and forth on it. But Florida State, from what I'm told, and I've spoken with multiple people on this, I don't have a copy of the latest amendment to his contract, but Florida State would not owe him any money up front. People have asked about Billy Napier. And Napier is owed like $13 million within X number of days of being fired. And that's a big reason that even when I think the decision has already been made on Napier, even when that decision has already been made kind of in the back of people's minds. Now, could that change? Certainly. The reason they're not doing it until after the season is because they owe him too much money up front. With Norvell, you don't owe any money up front. And I think that's a benefit for Florida State when you're thinking about a buyout. Is it's not like you got to pay him like Jimbo, like $75 million within X number of days or anything like that. Mike's buyout is very high at right around $64 million. I'll break down the numbers here in a minute. But not owing him money up front would be a big deal. The question I have, and Richie mentioned this, and I tweeted about this, is you're going to owe Mike a lot of money if you fire him. And I'm not saying they do fire him. I personally don't think they do at the end of this year. I don't think that's the way this goes down. If I'm wrong on that, certainly, we'll start over and we'll have a new coach and we'll see what happens. But if you did, you'd owe him just over $8.5 million in 25. You'd owe him just over that in 26. You'd owe him like 8.8 in 27. You'd owe him 9.1 in 28, 9.1 in 29, 9.2 in 2030, and then about 9.5 in 2031. So it's a big time commitment. It's a lot of money over a lot of years. A couple of points to make about that. Number one, there is offset language in his contract. And so if he took a job elsewhere, making $4 or $5 million a year, you would take that $4 or $5 million off of those numbers. So say he went to somewhere else and found a low-level job at Charleston Southern, wherever, right, and makes $3 or $4 million a year, that buyout goes down from 8.5 down to 4.5 or 5.5, right? So you are saving a little bit of money there. There's also the fact of just what Richie mentioned. How much money is the Battle's End and the boosters going to lose in donations and ticket sales and renewals due to this? Well, if that number is like $3 million, right, just throwing out a number, then financially it probably doesn't make sense to move on from Norvell because you have a $5 million gap there that you need to figure out how to make up. And in all reality, where's that money going to come from? It's probably going to come from other programs. And I don't necessarily know that that's something that Florida State is going to do. Other programs that are already kind of operating on a razor-thin budget because most of the money goes to football. But if the Battle's End and the boosters and ticket sales and donations and things like that were to decrease next year by $10 million, like if the boosters and the Battle's End together make $10 million less next season due to this product, then you would financially be smarter to let go of Norvell because then you would be losing more than you're paying him out in a buyout. Now, I don't know what those numbers are. I'm not in the analytics team for the boosters. I'm not in the projections team for the Battle's End. I don't know what their 2025 forecasts look like with the product that's on the field. I'd have to imagine that they will sustain big losses in both donors and tickets based on the way that this thing is going. Are people going to be as likely to renew their season tickets after a 1 or 2 win season? And that's where I think you have to start thinking about the buyout. I'm not saying it happens. I'm not saying you got to fire Mike Norvell. Do I think he turns it around? I don't. I think it comes down to a financial thing. If you think you lose more than $8.5 million next year due to this product, I think it would be smarter to let him go. If you think you're only going to lose 2 or 3, then maybe you give him another year and see if he can turn it around and get you back for the next guy. So the financial respect of it is really big. And I think that is a big ask to try and figure that out. Again, where do you find that extra $8 million guaranteed per year or $8 to $10 million guaranteed per year to pay him? I don't know. The other thing is, who do you get to replace him, right? Who are you paying to replace him? People say, well, you got to pay him to not only buy out, you also got to pay his replacement. Absolutely. That is absolutely correct. You're probably going with another, I'll say project. Like, you're not bringing someone else in here with a limited budget. You're not bringing someone else in here like a Lane Kiffin. Like, you're not going to get Lane at $10+ million a year and being able to pay him. So you're probably going down to the group of 5 level again and paying somebody a little bit cheaper. Maybe you can find an SEC coordinator who is pretty familiar with what's going on and knows how to build a team, and kind of the way that Lanning went from Georgia to Oregon. Now, Lanning is super high paid now, but when you first got him at Oregon, he wasn't making $10+ million a year. And so maybe you could go that route, but even then, I think you're still gonna have to pay that guy $6 or $7 million to come in here. Because, Jimmy Sexton is going to bend you over again like he did last time. So yeah, I think that that's all part of the equation. And that's what makes it tough is, to me, it's no longer like, if Mike's buyout was not what it was, like if it was in the 30s, I think he'd be gone.
He's done. Yeah, he's done.
I think if you're paying $6.5 million a year in buyouts, like that's not palatable. That's not fun. But after 1 or 2 wins at Florida State University, like that just cannot happen. And again, I like Mike. I am right there with Richie. It pains me to have to talk about this because we all stood on the Hill last year and defended this guy to our death. We have praised him when he has been elite. But at this point, we haven't even brought up the fact of recruiting. Florida State is recruiting in the 50s right now. That's not good enough, right? Like, you have to be better. And so there's no real path to this turning around. Like, oh, the path is there. You just have to do these little things. We've talked about the path, like what needs to be done, but the path is you hire better coaches and you recruit better. Are you confident that those things happen? Like, are you confident that that's something that happens? So I don't know. I really struggle to see a way out of this. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, but it is. And I'll say all that stuff, like the rosy way that I've just painted that with, well, it's only $9 million. That's a freaking lot of money, man. I ain't saying they're going to do it. I don't think they do it.
They won't.
But that's, yeah, if you're watching this and you have $9 or $10 million, call the boosters right now and put your money up. But a lot of us say like, well, just find the money. Well, it's hard to just find the money, man. We're already like $40-50 million a year behind the SEC and the Big Ten. You want to put that another 10 on that, So I don't know, Richie, it ain't good.
Yeah, and as a fan base, we are very pissed off right now, and we should be, because at Florida State we should expect better. I tweeted this out. I got a little pushback, but I will say it on here because I truly believe it. Continue to give to Seminole boosters and continue to give to the battle's end, because if you do not, you are not part of the solution. You are part of the problem at that point. If your anger gets you to the point where you just pull dollars away. Now, listen, if not everyone's in a position where they can give money, and that's fine. But if you are in a position where you can give, you need to continue to give. But yeah, it's untenable at this point. These press conferences, TJ, when I watch them week to week, it's the same thing. And Mike, it seems like he's trying to talk with passion, but it almost sounds like his voice is cracking, like he wants to cry. Like it's one of the worst things you ever see from another man. And he's done great, and I've loved him, and continue. Again, great person. He's been good to me. He's been good to my wife every time we've met him. But we're at an untenable situation right now. We're staring 2-10 right in the eyes, something that has not been done since before Bobby Bowden took over the university nearly 40 years ago. And finding the money is going to be tough, but you know what? There's enough Florida State boosters. I'll just say this. The money is there if they truly want it. They're going to have to, do some convincing and politicking to get that money ponied up. But I can promise you the money is there if they truly want to make a move.
Yeah, really, really tough situation. And it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. All that said, my optimal scenario, because I like Mike, as much as I've just whined and moaned and complained, I want Mike to work out. I just don't see it happening. I'd love to 100%. Eat crow. Yeah. I'd love for him to figure this out, prove everyone wrong. He talks about his confidence in himself to turn it around. Man, I want all that to be true. I absolutely want it. But at the same time, I'm a realist, right? And
Yeah.
fool me once, shame on I like all those things. I don't see it. And shoot, prove me wrong, Mike. Prove us wrong, right? But if you're asking me what I think happens, and I think the rest of the fan base thinks this way too, I don't see it. Harlan, we got a couple super chats we'll get to. Let's go. So what are your thoughts on Mike Norvell? Do you think that he can turn it around? Do you think he should be given that time? If he is given that time, which I think he will, as Richie and I have discussed, what changes do you want to see? Let's talk about that down below in the comments. Hey, I know everybody's frustrated. I know you're not thrilled. I know you're not happy. Don't double down on that by making a bad decision. Go make a good decision at BetUS right now. Appreciate their support. We'll talk to you guys soon. Go Noles.